All right, so let's talk about this from thedecoder.com. A personalized chatbot is more likely to change your mind than another human, study finds. And what did they find? Well, your friend, ChatGPT, large language model that everybody loves to go to, can significantly outperform humans in terms of persuasiveness in face-to-face debate situations. Here's the real meat and potatoes of this, is that if GPT-4 and a human are both trying to persuade you, generally, it is better, but not like significantly better. However, when you give it the chance to get personalized information, people cannot do much with it. GPT-4 can do amazing things with it. So that crazy number that I'm talking about, that whopping 81.7% better than a human debater that I was talking about, that is when GPT-4 gets to personalize its arguments. We're just talking about age, gender, race, stuff like that. So 81.7% better at persuading should scare you enough right now, but imagine when it actually gets incredibly refined personal information about you that it can incorporate into its persuasion. These are advertisements that will convince us to buy things, to believe things. Misinformation will feel 100% real in the future, I promise. It's going to be a big problem.
Neuroscientists find way to make people more hypnotizable. Story by Pandora Dewan. For the first time, neuroscientists at Stanford University have discovered how to make people more susceptible to hypnosis. Hypnotizability is as stable a trait in adult life as IQ, Spiegel said. About 20% of adults are highly hypnotizable, 50% moderately hypnotizable, and 30% not very hypnotizable. Hypnotizability can be measured easily in about 5 minutes, and we have even developed a point-of-care genetic test from a small blood sample. In previous work, Spiegel and his colleagues determined that highly hypnotizable people have more connectivity between areas in the brain involved in information processing and stimulus detection. It made sense that people who naturally coordinate activity between these two regions would be able to concentrate more intently, he said. It's because you're coordinating what you are focusing on with the system that distracts you. Using this knowledge, the team has pioneered a non-invasive brain stimulation technique to mimic these effects and increase an individual's hypnotizability, albeit temporarily. In its recent study, published in the journal Nature Mental Health, the team tested its technique on a sample of 80 patients with fibromyalgia, a chronic pain condition that can be treated with hypnotherapy. Half of these participants received transcranial magnetic stimulation, a technique in which paddles are applied to the scalp to deliver pulses of electricity to the brain. Using brain imaging, the team was able to direct these pulses directly to the areas in each individual's brain involved in hypnotizability. Compared with those who received a sham treatment, the same apparatus with no electric pulse, the participants who received neurostimulation were significantly more susceptible to hypnotherapy after just 2 minutes of treatment. However, after 1 hour this effect had worn off, and both groups of participants became equally susceptible. We were pleasantly surprised that we were able to, with 92 seconds of stimulation, change a stable brain trait that people have been trying to change for 100 years, co-author Nolan Williams, also a psychiatry professor at Stanford, said in a statement. We finally cracked the code on how to do it. But could this technique be used by malignant forces to control the minds of the masses, as in Incredibles 2? Anything that has the power to help also has the power to hurt, Spiegel said. But all hypnosis is really self-hypnosis, so people retain the ability to manage their response to exploitative hypnotic instructions, though perhaps with more difficulty. Remember that people can go along with stupid or malicious suggestions without hypnosis too. We are all susceptible to some degree to social influence. Startup gets $50 million to build an AI that understands how you're feeling. Story by Kit Eaton. As AI starts moving beyond text-based chatbots, Hume AI's EVI hints that next-gen models may act and sound eerily human. ChatGPT may be 42 different kinds of amazing, serving up fun, useful information, and even tips on how to run your business. But if you think about it, the mainly text-based input and output that ChatGPT and much of the current wave of AI tech uses is fairly pedestrian. Typing wordy commands into an interface and then waiting to get mainly text-based answers back smacks of the computers in a 1990s B-grade sci-fi movie. A new startup wants to change all that. Hume AI is building an AI that can process human emotions and incorporate emotional cues in its responses, doing all of it using a voice-based interface. Closer to how humans communicate, this is clearly the path for future AIs to follow. It makes interacting with the tech more subtle, and, in settings like hospitals, that's likely a good thing. Oh, and Hume's tech demo is also certain to give you the chills. Technology website VentureBeat reports that Hume AI, which is headquartered in New York and led by former Google DeepMind AI researcher Alan Cowan, just disclosed it has secured $50 million in Series B funding. That's a healthy amount of money for any startup, but as AI companies are popping up like mushrooms, it also underlines how Hume is different. Hume, named for famed Scottish philosopher David Hume, is designing an AI system that, as well as looking for instructions the same way AIs like ChatGPT do, examines what you say to it to make a guess as to how you're feeling. It can pick up on nuances like intonation and pacing of your spoken word commands, and then use what it's learned to tailor its responses appropriately. Hume's empathetic voice interface, EVI, demonstrator shows exactly how clever the tech is. Check out how it sounds via Hume's X posting. Hume calls it the first conversational AI with emotional intelligence. Hume's technology reaches beyond EVI as AI starts moving beyond text-based chatbots. Hume AI's EVI hints that next-gen models may act and sound eerily human as well. It's building an API, or set of software hooks, so that other companies can connect to it and build AIs that use its emotionally savvy systems. With plenty of negative AI news around, covering everything from its threats to workers' job security, the way it can spread election disinformation, terrify users with bullying and threatening responses, and even harm your business, your inner skeptic may be worried about the direction EVI suggests AI is going. Knowing how the advertising industry is adept at manipulating consumer emotion, it's a safe bet that future AI ad systems will use code like EVIs to sell products more effectively, or some other chillingly cold business metric, and that may indeed be worrisome. But it's easy to see that an emotionally sensitive AI could bring plenty of benefits too. A customer service helpline AI that can tell, for example, when a customer is genuinely pissed could respond appropriately. And of course in healthcare settings, where AI is already finding uses, an emotionally gentle way of dealing with patients' requests and responses may be better for people's mental well-being. Curious about how it thought about its applications, this writer asked EVI how it might be used, and it spoke both about healthcare and helplines, noting, just imagine I could be integrated into customer service hotlines, providing a friendly, empathetic ear, and really understanding how customers are feeling. Understanding that an entrepreneurial spirit doesn't always mesh smoothly with a high EQ for managing people. Just picture a business meeting with Mark Zuckerberg. It's also not much of a stretch to picture an AI like EVI helping manage the staff in many a future startup. Hume's system can detect 53 subtle human emotions, VentureBeat notes. How often have you thought your all-too-human, mid-level manager lacked an excellent grasp of empathetic pain, aesthetic appreciation, or just plain old enthusiasm? And yes, there's also a hint here that near-future AI tech may be crossing into what some may deem unsettling territory. Remember 2013's quirky Joaquin Phoenix movie Hit Her? Yup. Emotionally savvy AIs may soon allow startup companies to truly build and profit from apps that toy with genuinely deep human feelings. Brain recordings map speech sounds before they are spoken. Story by Dennis Thompson, Health Day News. Advanced brain recording techniques have revealed how neurons in the human brain work together to produce speech. The recordings provide a detailed map of how people think about what words they want to say and then speak them aloud, researchers report in Wednesday's issue of the journal Nature. Specifically, the map shows how speech sounds like consonants and vowels are represented in the brain well before they are spoken, and how the brain strings them together during language production. Although speaking usually seems easy, our brains perform many complex cognitive steps in the production of natural speech, including coming up with the words we want to say, planning the articulatory movements, and producing our intended vocalizations, said senior study author Dr. Ziv Williams, an associate professor in neurosurgery at Massachusetts General Hospital in Boston. Our brains perform these feats surprisingly fast, about 3 words per second in natural speech, with remarkably few errors, Williams added in a hospital news release. Yet, how we precisely achieve this feat has remained a mystery. The findings could form the basis of sophisticated brain-machine interfaces capable of producing synthetic speech, the researchers said. They also could provide insight into a wide array of disorders that hamper or prevent speech. Disruptions in the speech and language networks are observed in a wide variety of neurological disorders, including stroke, traumatic brain injury, tumors, neurodegenerative disorders, neurodevelopmental disorders, and more, said study co-author Dr. Arjun Khanna, a neurosurgeon at Stanford University. Our hope is that a better understanding of the basic neural circuitry that enables speech and language will pave the way for the development of treatments for these disorders, Khanna added. The study relied on a cutting-edge technology called neuropixels probes, which researchers use to record the activity of individual neurons in the prefrontal cortex region of the brain. The research team identified cells that are involved in language production that could underlie the ability to speak. They also found separate groups of neurons in the brain dedicated to speaking and listening. These probes are remarkable. They are smaller than the width of a human hair, yet they also have hundreds of channels that are capable of simultaneously recording the activity of dozens or even hundreds of individual neurons, Williams said. Use of these probes can therefore offer unprecedented new insights into how neurons in humans collectively act and how they work together to produce complex human behaviors such as language, he added. As a result, researchers could observe how neurons in the brain fire to create the basic elements involved in constructing spoken words. For example, the consonant d, which is produced by touching the tongue to the hard palate behind the teeth, is needed to produce the word dog. Researchers found that certain neurons become active before d is spoken out loud. Other neurons then fired to combine d with other sounds, creating the one-syllable word dog. Using this speech mapping, scientists can predict the combination of consonants and vowels a person plans to say before the words are actually spoken. Researchers next plan to focus on more complex language processes that will allow them to investigate how people choose the words they intend to say and how the brain assembles those words into sentences. New algorithm disentangles intrinsic brain patterns from sensory inputs. Story by ScienceX staff. Mariam Shainshi and her team have developed a new machine learning method that reveals surprisingly consistent intrinsic brain patterns across different subjects by disentangling these patterns from the effect of visual inputs. The work has been published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. When performing various everyday movement behaviors, such as reaching for a book, our brain has to take in information, often in the form of visual input, for example, seeing where the book is. Our brain then has to process this information internally to coordinate the activity of our muscles and perform the movement. But how do millions of neurons in our brain perform such a task? Answering this question requires studying the neurons' collective activity patterns, but doing so while disentangling the effective input from the neuron's intrinsic, aka internal, processes, whether movement relevant or not. That's what Shainshi, her PhD student Parsa Vahidi, and a research associate in her lab, Omid Sani, did by developing a new machine learning method that models neural activity while considering both movement behavior and sensory input. Prior methods for analyzing brain data have either considered neural activity and input but not behavior, or considered neural activity and behavior but not input, Shainshi said. We developed a method that can consider all three signals, neural activity, behavior, and input, when extracting hidden brain patterns. This allowed us to not only disentangle input-related and intrinsic neural patterns, but also separate out which intrinsic patterns were related to movement behavior and which were not. Shainshi and her team used this method to study 3 publicly available datasets, during which 3 different subjects performed one of 2 distinct movement tasks, consisting of moving a cursor on a computer screen over a grid or moving it sequentially to random locations. When using methods that did not consider all 3 signals, the patterns found in neural activity of these 3 subjects looked different, Vahidi said. But when the team used the new method to consider all 3 signals, a remarkably consistent hidden pattern emerged from neural activity of all 3 subjects that was relevant to movement. This similarity was despite the fact that the tasks performed by the 3 subjects were also different. In addition to revealing this new consistent pattern, the method also improved the prediction of neural activity and behavior compared to when all 3 signals were not considered during machine learning, as in prior work, Sani said. The new method enables researchers to more accurately model neural and behavioral data by accounting for various measured inputs to the brain, such as sensory inputs as in this work, electrical or optogenetic stimulation, or even input from different brain areas. This method and the discovered pattern can help us understand how our brains perform movements, guided by the information we receive from the external world. Further, By modeling the effect of input and separating out intrinsic patterns that are behavior relevant, this method can help develop future brain-computer interfaces that regulate abnormal brain patterns in disorders such as major depression by optimizing external inputs such as deep brain stimulation therapy. We are excited about how this algorithm could facilitate both scientific discoveries and the development of future neurotechnologies for millions of patients with neurological or neuropsychiatric disorders, Shainshi said. Scientists train a bank of AI models to identify patterns of brain activity that signal memory formation. Story by Science X staff. The study of brain oscillations has advanced our understanding of brain function. Ripples are a type of fast oscillation underlying the organization of memories. They are affected in neurological disorders such as epilepsy and Alzheimer's. For this reason, they are considered an electroencephalographic (EEG) biomarker. However, ripples exhibit various waveforms and properties that can be missed by standard spectral methods. Recently, the neuroscience community called for the need to better automate, harmonize, and improve the detection of ripples across a range of tasks and species. In the study, the authors used recordings obtained in laboratory mice to train a toolbox of machine learning models. We have tested the ability of these models using data from non-human primates that were collected at Vanderbilt University, Nashville, U.S., by Samana Boss-Boer and lab leader Carrie Hoffman as part of the BRAIN Initiative. We found that it is possible to use rodent EEG data to train AI algorithms that can be applied to data from primates and possibly humans, provided the same type of recording techniques are used, explains De La Prida, who is part of the 6 AI Hub connection aimed at advancing the use of AI and its applications. The model toolbox emerged as a result of a hackathon, which resulted in a short list for the best detection models. These architectures were then harmonized and optimized by the authors, who now provide all codes and data openly to the research community. Models include some of the best-known supervised learning architectures, such as support vector machines, decision trees, and convolutional neural networks. We have identified more than 100 possible models from the different architectures that are now available for application or retraining by other researchers, say Andrea Navis-Olive and Adrian Rubio, who are the first authors of the work. This bank of AI models will provide new applications in the field of neurotechnologies and can be useful for detection and analysis of high-frequency oscillations in pathologies such as epilepsy, where they are considered clinical markers, concludes De La Prida.
Machine learning tools can predict emotion in voices in just over a second.
Story by Science X staff. Words are important to express ourselves. What we don't say, however, may be even more instrumental in conveying emotions. Humans can often tell how people around them feel through nonverbal cues embedded in our voice. Now, researchers in Germany have sought to find out if technical tools, too, can accurately predict emotional undertones in fragments of voice recordings. To do so, they compared 3 ML models' accuracy to recognize diverse emotions in audio accepts. Their results were published in Frontiers in Psychology. Here we show that machine learning can be used to recognize emotions from audio clips as short as 1.5 seconds, said the article's first author Hannes Diemerling, a researcher at the Center for Lifespan Psychology at the Max Planck Institute for Human Development. Our models achieved an accuracy similar to humans when categorizing meaningless sentences with emotional coloring spoken by actors. Hearing how we feel. The researchers drew nonsensical sentences from 2 datasets, one Canadian, one German, which allowed them to investigate whether ML models can accurately recognize emotions regardless of language, cultural nuances, and semantic content. Each clip was shortened to a length of 1.5 seconds, as this is how long humans need to recognize emotion in speech. It is also the shortest possible audio length in which overlapping of emotions can be avoided. The emotions included in the study were joy, anger, sadness, fear, disgust, and neutral. Based on training data, the researchers generated ML models which worked one of 3 ways. Deep neural networks, DNNs, are like complex filters that analyze sound components like frequency or pitch, for example when a voice is louder because the speaker is angry, to identify underlying emotions. Convolutional neural networks, CNNs, scan for patterns in the visual representation of soundtracks, much like identifying emotions from the rhythm and texture of a voice. The hybrid model, CDNN, merges both techniques. using both audio and its visual spectrogram to predict emotions. The models then were tested for effectiveness on both datasets. We found that DNNs and cDNNs achieve a better accuracy than only using spectrograms in CNNs, Diemerling said. Regardless of model, emotion classification was correct with a higher probability than can be achieved through guessing and was comparable to the accuracy of humans.
As good as any human.
We wanted to set our models in a realistic context and used human prediction skills as a benchmark, Diemerling explained. Had the models outperformed humans, it could mean that there might be patterns that are not recognizable by us. The fact that untrained humans and models performed similarly may mean that both rely on resembling recognition patterns, the researchers said. The present findings also show that it is possible to develop systems that can instantly interpret emotional cues to provide immediate and intuitive feedback in a wide range of situations. This could lead to scalable, cost-efficient applications in various domains where understanding emotional context is crucial, such as therapy and interpersonal communication technology. The researchers also pointed to some limitations in their study, for example, that actor-spoken sample sentences may not convey the full spectrum of real, spontaneous emotion. They also said that future work should investigate audio segments that last longer or shorter than 1.5 seconds to find out which duration is optimal for emotion recognition. Scientists discover a framework in the brain for organizing the order of things. Story by Science X staff. Scientists at NTNU's Kavli Institute for Systems Neuroscience in Norway have discovered a pattern of activity in the brain that serves as a template for building sequential experiences. I believe we have found one of the brain's prototypes for building sequences, says Professor Edvard Moser. He describes the activity pattern as a fundamental algorithm that is intrinsic to the brain and independent of experience. The breakthrough discovery was published in Nature. The ability to organize elements into sequences is a fundamental biological function essential for our survival. Without it, we would not be able to communicate, keep track of time, find our way, or even remember what we are in the process of doing. The world would cease to present itself to us in meaningful experiences, as every event would be fragmented into an erratic series of random happenings. The NTNU researchers' discovery of a rigid sequence pattern in the brain provides new insights into how we organize experiences into a temporal order. The sequential nature of memory. Have you ever heard memories described as snapshots? That is not a very faithful description, according to Professor Edvard Moser. It is more helpful to think of memories as videos, he says. All your experiences in the world extend over time, says Professor Maybrit Moser. One thing happens, then another thing, then a third. Your brain has the remarkable ability to mentally capture and organize selected events into the chronological order in which they occurred, and to link them together as meaningful experiences. This sequence-building activity takes place on the timescale in which you interact in the situation. When you recall this memory, the process of reliving the sequence of events in your mind also takes time. How is the brain able to generate and store all these unique and lengthy sequences of information on the fly? Asks Edvard Moser. There has to exist a foundational mechanism for sequence formation there. There is a mismatch in neuroscience between the timescales at which brain activity is typically studied, in the millisecond regime, and the timescales at which many of our most important brain functions occur, in the tens of seconds to several minutes range, says Soledad Gonzalo Cogno, Kavli Research Group leader and first author of the paper, expanding on the motivation behind this study. The team set out to identify this fundamental mechanism for sequence formation, which occurs on very slow timescales as most of our brain functions do. The experiment. To uncover how neurons coordinate at the slow timescales at which many of our brain functions unfold, the Kavli researchers focused on the medial entorhinal cortex, MEC, a brain area that supports brain functions that depend on sequence formation, such as navigation and episodic memory, which unfold very slowly in time. The sheer volume of information about the outside world being processed in the brain at any one time posed a challenge to the pursuit. Any baseline signal from structured and recurrent neural algorithms would risk drowning in the noise of incoming experience. To get around this, the researchers created an experimental environment that was almost devoid of sensory inputs. They let a mouse run in complete darkness, with no task to complete and no reward to earn. The mouse could run or rest as it pleased for as long as the session lasted. At the same time, the researchers recorded what was happening in the entorhinal cortex of the mouse's brain while its orchestra of nerve cells remained in this soft-spoken standby position. A fundamental brain mechanism for sorting information into sequences. This is what we found, says Soledad Gonzalo Cogno, pointing to a zebra-striped figure before her. The pattern is made up of thousands of dots clustered together. Each dot is a neural signal. We can see that the neural activity moves through all the cells from bottom to top along the y-axis as time progresses along the x-axis. The clustering tells us that the activity is coordinated as waves running through the network, like rhythms in a symphony. The sequences are ultra-slow, meaning that it takes 2 minutes for the wave to travel through the neural network before the whole process repeats again, sometimes for as long as the duration of the test session, over periods of up to an hour. The figure shows several hundred mouse entorhinal cortex neurons oscillating at ultra-slow frequencies, spanning time windows ranging from tens of seconds to several minutes. The dynamic that excited the researchers, even more, is that as each cell oscillates, the cells also organize themselves into sequences, with cell A firing before cell B firing before cell C, and so on, until they have completed a full loop and return to cell A, where the cycle repeats. This highly structured activity overlaps with the timescale of events that we encode into our memories and provides the perfect template for building the sequential structure that forms the basis of episodic memories. These waves of coordinated activity did not travel straight from one end of the brain tissue to the other. Instead, the waves travel along the thin synaptic connections between cells that talk to each other in the network. Cells can talk to other cells far away and to their nearest neighbors. The anatomical tangle makes it difficult to see coordinated activity with the naked eye without first locating the cells from the raster plot. Zebra stripes, spiral, and ring. The zebra-striped raster plot shows the slow waves of activity through the whole network over a period of time. If you fold the raster plot into a tube so that the top and the bottom of the figure overlap, you will see that the diagonal stripes connect to form a coherent spiral, explains Maybrit Moser. The spiral represents the network activity over time. You will see a ring if you rotate the spiral by 90 degrees. All the cells in the network have their set time to fire, distributed across the surface of this ring. The signal travels through the entire ring structure before returning to the same cell. This ring is a signature for coordination patterns in the form of repetitive sequences, which is what we found in the mech, says Soledad Gonzalo Cogno. Other brain areas have different coordination patterns. Your brain may already be equipped with this ring before you experience anything in this world. It is acquired through evolution and may be specified in our genes. What excites me most about this discovery is the prospect that these sequences may open up for new ways of understanding the brain, says Gonzalo Cogno. The discoveries that follow may challenge the way we think about coordination throughout the brain. Cells that are so different still seem to be coordinated and work together on different timescales. More information. Edvard Moser, Minute-Scale Oscillatory Sequences in Medial Entorhinal Cortex. Nature, 2023. Researchers reach new AI benchmark for computer graphics. Story by Science X staff. Computer graphic simulations can represent natural phenomena such as tornadoes, underwater, vortices, and liquid foams more accurately thanks to an advancement in creating artificial intelligence, AI, neural networks. Working with a multi-institutional team of researchers, Georgia Tech assistant Professor Bo Zhu combined computer graphic simulations with machine learning models to create enhanced simulations of known phenomena. The new benchmark could lead to researchers constructing representations of other phenomena that have yet to be simulated. Zhu co-authored the paper Fluid Simulation on Neural Flow Maps. The Association for Computing Machinery's Special Interest Group in Computer Graphics and Interactive Technology, SIGGRAPH, gave it a Best Paper Award in December at the SIGGRAPH Asia Conference in Sydney, Australia. The paper is published in ACM Transactions on Graphics, and the full text can be accessed on the preprint server AR14. The authors say the advancement could be as significant to computer graphic simulations as the introduction of neural radiance fields, NeRFs, was to computer vision in 2020. Introduced by researchers at the University of California, Berkeley, University of California, San Diego, and Google, NeRFs are neural networks that easily convert 2D images into 3D navigable scenes. NeRFs have become a benchmark among computer vision researchers. Zhu and his collaborators hope their creation, Neural Flow Maps, can do the same for simulation researchers in computer graphics. A natural question to ask is, can AI fundamentally overcome the traditional method's shortcomings and bring generational leaps to simulation as it has done to natural language processing and computer vision? Zhu said, simulation accuracy has been a significant challenge to computer graphics researchers. No existing work has combined AI with physics to yield high-end simulation results that outperform traditional schemes in accuracy. In computer graphics, simulation pipelines are the equivalent of neural networks and allow simulations to take shape. They are traditionally constructed through mathematical equations and numerical schemes. Zhu said researchers have tried to design simulation pipelines with neural representations to construct more robust simulations. However, efforts to achieve higher physical accuracy have fallen short. Zhu attributes the problem to the pipeline's incapability of matching the capacities of AI algorithms within the structures of traditional simulation pipelines. To solve the problem and allow machine learning to have influence, Zhu and his collaborators proposed a new framework that redesigns the simulation pipeline. They named these new pipelines neural flow maps. The maps use machine learning models to store spatiotemporal data more efficiently. The researchers then align these models with their mathematical framework to achieve a higher accuracy than previous pipeline simulations. Zhu said he does not believe machine learning should be used to replace traditional numerical equations. Rather, they should complement them to unlock new advantageous paradigms. Instead of trying to deploy modern AI techniques to replace components inside traditional pipelines, we co-design the simulation algorithm and machine learning technique in tandem, Zhu said. Numerical methods are not optimal because of their limited computational capacity. Recent AI-driven capacities have uplifted many of these limitations. Our task is redesigning existing simulation pipelines to take full advantage of these new AI capacities. In the paper, the authors state the once unattainable algorithmic designs could unlock new research possibilities in computer graphics. Neural flow maps offer a new perspective on the incorporation of machine learning in numerical simulation research for computer graphics and computational sciences alike, the paper states. The success of neural flow maps is inspiring for how physics and machine learning are best combined, Zhu added. Researchers introduce enhanced brain signal analysis technique. Story by Alex Smith. University of Minnesota Medical School researchers have introduced a new, refined method for analyzing brain signals, enhancing our understanding of brain functionality. This research has the potential to improve treatments for neurological conditions such as Parkinson's disease, pain, epilepsy, and depression. The findings were recently published in Neuroimage. This breakthrough provides a more detailed understanding of the brain's complex activity, akin to upgrading from a basic telescope to a sophisticated space observatory, said David Darrow, MD, MPH, an assistant professor at the U of M Medical School, a neurosurgeon with M Health Fairview and senior author. This innovation could impact various aspects of everyday life, from education and mental health to artificial intelligence, paving the way for future technological advancements and a deeper understanding of human cognition. One of the key findings of this research is the enhanced ability to analyze direct brain recordings, meaning scientists can now better understand how brain activity correlates to different tasks and behaviors. Additionally, this method allows researchers to directly extract patterns of brain activity over time, revealing how different brain areas process stimuli during tasks, such as image identification. This research represents a significant advance in our ability to analyze neural signals. It opens up new possibilities for understanding the complex dynamics of the human brain, paving the way for future discoveries in neuroscience, said Alexander Herman, MD, PhD, an assistant professor of psychiatry at the University of Minnesota Medical School, attending psychiatrist with M Health Fairview and co-senior author. The research team is working on the next iteration of the platform, which will allow them to decode brain signals and apply strategies for integrating them into medical devices and new treatments.
Here's the real meat and potatoes of this, is that if GPT-4 and a human are both trying to persuade you generally, it is better, but not like significantly better. However, when you give it the chance to get personalized information, People cannot do much with it. GPT-4 can do amazing things with it. So that crazy number that I'm talking about, that whopping 81.7% better than a human debater that I was talking about, that is when GPT-4 gets to personalize its arguments. We're just talking about age, gender, race, stuff like that. So 81.7% better at persuading should scare you enough right now, but imagine when it actually gets incredibly refined personal information about you that it can incorporate into its persuasion. These are advertisements that will convince us to buy things, to believe things. Misinformation will feel 100% real in the future, I promise. It's going to be a big problem. It's going to be a big problem. It's going to be a big problem.